Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me is Sean Brehm. He's chairman of Spectral Capital, and Hart Montgomery, CTO of LF Decentralized Trust, as well as executive director of Post-Quantum Cryptography Alliance. We're here to discuss why quantum computing may eclipse AI and its implications for investors, businesses, and consumers. Gentlemen, it's great to have the both of you with us. Welcome to Trade Talks. If we could just spend a brief moment here, Sean, give us some background in terms of where Spectral sits within the quantum ecosystem.
Yes, we're trying to, Spectral Capital, we're really focusing ourselves as a quantum incubator, and we're focusing it in a way that kind of looks at the bridge from where we are in classical compute systems to future quantum systems. In other words, we know we've got this target sitting out there of quantum chips, but how do we get there in a short period of time? And how do we make sure that we're ready for when the quantum chips come on board? So we're working with technologies like distributed quantum ledger databases. Some things the other guest is going to be talking to you today about is Sphinx Plus mechanisms to protect data. How do we configure data in a way that can work with the quantum computing future? It's a mouthful.
Yeah. It is a tongue twister, some of the terms that we're learning about here. Hart, so perfect segue for you. Tell us about the work that you're doing at LF Decentralized Trust, as well as the Cryptography Alliance.
Absolutely. At the Linux Foundation, we're very excited about the potential for quantum computing in the future. Today, however, we're mostly worried about quantum computers breaking cryptography. So we're putting in a lot of work to try to move forward and encourage people to adopt post-quantum cryptographic primitives and software so that we can be safe when powerful quantum computers arrive.
Yeah. Sean, let's take a step back for a moment here. What is quantum computing? What are some of the differences between the computing that we are accustomed to working with in today's day and age?
Let me break. My wife always tells me I go too deep, so I'll give my best here. So quantum computing, if you think of it in an allegorical sense, is just a super intelligent problem solver that uses the rules of physics to process information in a completely new way. So if you think of current systems today, it's like flipping on an on and off switch. That's a classical computer. We know those as ones and zeros and bits and bytes. So a computer can be off, on, off, and then somewhere in between at the same time. This really helps us moving forward with quantum computing, because now it's going to create a machine that can explore multiple possibilities at once, because instead of being bits and bytes, we're getting into qubits. There can be multiple things at the same time. And then when you start looking at moving data through there, you have the ability to start looking at the concepts like entanglement using quantum algorithms that allows us to run analytics during the computation process. So instead of actually running a computation process and then yielding an answer, we're able to start yielding that answer in real time. And you'll start seeing that kind of impact with the way we see AI today.
So, Hart, let me ask you a question here, because you had mentioned that it could potentially be used to break cryptographic code. So 2 questions here. Is this a cybersecurity issue that we're focused on? Or, I mean, cryptography, that's kind of, the baseline for digital assets, a part of the story there. So what are some of the implications of this? Is it a security issue, or is it a coding issue?
Well, it's really both. Today's internet, runs on public key cryptography, right? And due to Shor's algorithm, once we have reasonably powerful fault-tolerant quantum computers, we will be able to essentially break every variant of public key cryptography that is in widespread use today. So, as you might imagine, this is a huge problem if quantum computers come around before everybody updates to new cryptographic protocols. So NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, has recently concluded a competition of almost a decade to develop new standards. So we do have these new standards out. People just have to adopt them before quantum computers become viable enough to break them.
Is that a 3 to 5 year timeline? Do we just not have the skill set in terms of people who have the mathematical know-how to be able to break these codes yet? Or is it something that's happening now? I would imagine that there's good actor uses for this as well.
Well, people are already migrating today. Like Apple messaging, for instance, has already migrated to a post-quantum cryptography protocol. So we've already seen some good work being done. As far as the timeline, I think it's really difficult to tell. There's this commonly talked about problem called the harvest now, decrypt later problem, which is, since cryptography protects our data moving across the internet today, it's possible that adversaries, companies, maybe even nation state actors are recording this data. And in the future, if they develop a quantum computer, they could potentially decrypt this data and break it, right? So if our data needs to be sensitive or is sensitive for a long time, this could be a problem in the future. So the timeline really depends on how sensitive your data is and how long it needs to remain secure into the future.
So, Sean, would you say it's something that we need to start worrying about now, or just have it in the back of your mind as you're thinking about the way AI is being leveraged and perhaps quantum computing? What does this mean for AI and perhaps other sectors?
Yeah, yesterday. We should be starting on it yesterday. I mean, right now he's 100% dead on. What we need to be it's possible. So, for example, you take a look at this NIST release. They talk about one technology which we deploy among others called Sphinx Plus. So imagine you want to send something highly confidential, and have you ever seen one of those, like, when you see the redacted documents that come out of Department of Defense or the intelligence community, they got all those black lines on it. Well, that we can move that today. So right now we're already doing this. So I can take my driver's license right now. I can redact it using Sphinx Plus, move it in the clear. That's what we call it. Run it through the clear, and then all the information about me is kept secure. But the entire conversation that doesn't need to be kept secure can be in plain sight. And I think starting today, this is something every company can do. We're doing it already. We are able to take a very detailed document, essentially replace the pieces of the information that are secure, assign it a B58 address on a quantum ledger database. And so as long as you have the decryption, you can read what it says, but the document might say, hi, my name is B58 and I work for B58, and we believe that B58 is going to be the most successful thing to our customer B58. So, and then with the key, you go straight back to it, and you can immediately read it. This is something that I agree with him. It can be implemented immediately today. It's something we all should be doing right now.
Sean, let's back up for a moment here to take some of the cues from your wife's in terms of making it a little bit more digestible. Does this represent investment opportunities? And then the question behind that is, what do businesses have to gain from leveraging this type of technology?
Great point. You have to understand why we're going to quantum to begin with. I mean, what happens typically, especially like even what we've done today, we've already gone through the whole process of, well, post crypt, we look at quantum computing. We want to be post quantum secure, and we want to use cryptography that's going to help us for when it happens. Well, the good news is when you understand what quantum computing is really about, it's the whole reason we're on this call today. I mean, the data is the new oil. It's moving at the speed of light every day. Companies, hedge funds, businesses, individuals are constantly, running analytics on that data to create information, to make better buying decisions, to make better decisions in national defense, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea behind quantum computing somewhere off the future can be done today. We can start leveraging the concepts of quantum computing right now. All of us. And so when I start talking about how companies should be investing, including individuals, you should start looking at these technologies right now that are bridge technologies that are bridging from where we're going to be post-quantum to literally be pre-quantum using classical compute systems. So my professional opinion, it's not about waiting or even kind of, storing up until it comes. There are things that people can do right now, today, in very simple terms, to start investing in becoming quantum ready by fusing current classical compute systems, the ones and zeros we talked about, with technologies that exist already that will also work in the post-quantum era.
So, Hart, the very elementary question, I might not even be positioning it right. Are we focusing too much on the applications of AI and kind of missing the forest through the trees and not allocating resources to quantum? Or do we still have to work through that AI environment to get to a more understood quantum environment?
Well, I honestly think quantum is much broader than AI, right?
Right.
Quantum algorithms, we honestly don't know too much about quantum algorithms these days, right? It's a very active topic of research, and people are constantly working on, trying to find new quantum algorithms for everything from very theoretical problems to very practical things like drug discovery and resource allocation. So, this is a very new field in terms of how much interest it's gotten. People have been working on it for a while, but it's really just exploded. Obviously it could potentially have huge impact on things like AI. It's really hard to tell at this point because the field of quantum algorithms, is so new in terms of how much interest it's seen from the broader community.
Yeah. I'm assuming too, Hart, that this is a capital intensive field because it is new. So perhaps a better way to ask it, is it better to prepare versus panic? I think panic might, we're still learning, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we are still learning. There's a lot of stuff we don't know. So I absolutely think it's time to prepare. Companies should have a quantum strategy. They should have a plan. And that's going to be important going forward in the future. But, it's not necessarily time to panic.
Right. Well, Sean, it sounds like what you do for any risk management scenario, right? You're going to prepare, you're going to test again, and then have these scenarios in place, when the technology is deployed or when you're really looking at making those investments into it, which of course are capital intensive, you will have understood, what these scenarios can look like. It's not like you're, jumping into the fire first.
No, you're exactly right. And like anything, I've been saying all along, there's a crawl, walk, run. We learned that, you want to crawl before you walk, before you run. So one of the things on the crawl phase I'd recommend to people watching this is focus on getting some cryptographic protection that's good for the post-quantum era. That can be done immediately. That's available. On quantum algorithms, there are some. I was lucky enough to work in a Department of Defense program in my past life. We just recently took it out of that program and we brought it into Spectral. So there are quantum algorithms that have been involved in some really interesting scenarios that we did in the past that kind of creates some really cool a priori discoveries. So there are quantum algorithms out there today. You're just starting to see some of these ones that were deep in kind of internal defense applications and intelligence applications that are working their way out. And they're going to be extremely useful for businesses today. So if I'm a chief information officer, if I'm a chief technology officer, you need to start looking at things like, leveraging the power of analytic tomography, which is an a priori discovery mechanism. So we are in the era already of quantum algorithms. There isn't much conversation about them as being tangible, but they're starting to get released from organizations that built them years ago.
Yeah, which is so interesting, Hart, why I'd asked you the question first. When I, started reading through the notes and as we're covering quantum more, I keep equating it to cybersecurity. And I wonder if it's because of the cryptographic nature of it. As a consumer, are we going to be exposed to quantum in the way that we've been exposed to Gen AI, where it's part of the everyday vernacular and we're using this type of software and tools on a daily basis? Or is this just on the enterprise and, government level at this point?
I think at this point, initially, it will probably be on the enterprise and government level. I mean, we all remember, I believe it was the chairman of IBM who said famously that there will only be a world market for 5 computers. And for a while we were sort of in the supercomputing era. And I think we'll certainly start in the quantum supercomputing era where there will be a handful of quantum computers and people will use them for interesting problems, but they won't be widespread. As far as what the future holds, it could be really exciting, right? We don't know, how easy or hard it will be to build, say, small quantum computers. And if we can have quantum computers in our cell phones, for instance, then we can, start to build really, really exciting applications. Like, we could do everyday quantum key distribution or even, more far-fetched things like quantum money. So I think it's really hard to say what the long-term future will be, but I think, in the near term, we'll sort of have that enterprise government model.
Yeah. And Sean, that goes back to what you were saying before, as data is really the modern day commodity, right? I mean, even if you think about it from high frequency trading perspective or, an area that we're more familiar with when you, apply to financial services, with all of that data and being able to, run multiple scenarios at one time, I think that's where I don't know if it's value, but perhaps where the future of high frequency trading could potentially be.
100%. I mean, my background as a former military officer, and I worked a lot in counterterrorism.
And thank you for your service.
Yeah. And so one of the things we would ask our intelligence guys all the time is like, hey, we're going to go hit this target. And you would get this answer that essentially summed up to this is that there is so much data that we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what questions to ask. Quantum computing solves that. It solves that. It basically starts taking, when you start, entanglement traditionally in quantum computing is considered a bad thing, but it actually, when it comes to AI, I believe it's going to subsume, I think AI is going to be subsumed by quantum computing, honestly, because you take this whole corpus of data, whether it's about trading. A lot of people say, oh gosh, quantum computing, trading's gonna be so much faster. No, you're never gonna lose against the floor. What you want to do is solve that problem is what you don't know. You'll be able to, let's take a look. If you got a company that's operating in the global industrial categorization sector of like industrials. So they're in industrials. Well, all of a sudden you're able to look at moments and oscillations in the commodity markets to forecast long before even the supply chain knows what's going to happen. So where quantum computing is going to lead us in trading is going to know what you didn't know before to make a better decision before anybody else can. Not necessarily involved in making a decision based on a candlestick. It's going to be a far more intelligent forecast mechanism.
Yeah,
A priority.
I mean, it's interesting that could be applied across, to your example, the military before, when you have to make those critical decisions in terms of what are the different types of scenarios and how do we triage that risk. I mean, think about it in, highly technical surgical decisions that need to be made, right? If you're able to run multiple models at once and be able to determine a more quantifiable risk scenario, I mean, that changes outcomes. It allows outcomes, I would imagine, to be more successful because data begets data, and you're able to run more scenarios and perhaps pinpoint the most successful outcome.
Agreed, 100%. I think the consumer applications, I'm a big fan of democratizing data.
Right.
And so I think what you're going to see in the quantum era, because he brought up a very good point. Hart brought up a point talking about, quantum assets. What you're going to see is a huge explosion in the idea of quantum digital assets. And what I love about it most is if you take what we've been talking about from the cybersecurity perspective, why is there $11 trillion in cybersecurity today? It's because someone right now wants to hack your data. They want to take it out of a commercial company's database, sell it into the dark web where unscrupulous people go ahead and massage it and then create a whole new version of it because it's taken your data and transformed it into valuable information and selling it back in, cleansed it back into the markets. But the source of all data on the world are all of us on this call today. We're the center of commercial and capital markets. So what I love about where quantum's going is if my data is secure, your data is secure, his data is secure, and it's protected with hashes like Sphinx Plus, I can run all my transactions right out in the open. All you know is that I just bought, I bought a pizza, or I bought a car, but you don't know who I am. It naturally increases the value of the individual. And then when you start taking entanglement concepts like benchmarking every transaction I make on a daily basis with the global industrial categorization, the same thing the S&P uses, now all of a sudden my daily contributions are something that a hedge fund would kill for. So I think there's some real huge upside in quantum computing. I'm a big believer. I posted something on X about this last night, which is I believe we're entering into a rejuvenation of the original Buttonwood Agreement with quantum computing, because we're going to take commercial and capital markets and bring them together in a far more efficient manner. So I'm excited about the future.
Yeah. And Hart, to wrap up here, if we could get your outlook when you think about this, whether it's in the context of the next year, 3 years, 5 years.
Yeah, I'm excited very much so about the future of quantum computing. I'm not a physicist, so I don't know how soon we're going to have quantum computers. People seem to think within maybe the next 15 years we'll have powerful enough computers to break, modern cryptography, which would also help us solve a lot of these very interesting optimization problems that Sean was talking about. And we'll see. I'm also super excited about the possibility of new quantum algorithms. There's been some, very exciting work done recently, and I'm generally just excited about the future.
Yeah, so am I, and we look forward to having the both of you back to guide us through that. Appreciate both of your insights. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.